Welcome, ChatMedders. Today is our 9th episode of ChatMed, and we're joined here by my co-host Ryan Singh and Dr. Monica Shah. So Dr. Monica Shah is a rheumatologist from Florida. She's also a fashion model and the former Miss India Florida. And she's also part of a show called Family Karma. Thank you, Dr. Shah, for joining us. Would you feel free to introduce yourself?
I think you guys did a great job. Hello to all your listeners. This is so fun for me, so I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, thank you again for coming on and spending some time with us and talking about your passions and your career. And so we're gonna move on to our first topic, and it's very interesting. We see that you have done rheumatology. Is it called rheumatology?
You got it.
So basically, I'm not 100% sure, to be honest, what that is. When I'm interested in medicine, but when you first research medicine, only like the big names come up, like family medicine and that. And I've heard rheumatology before, but I'll be honest, I really like don't know like about it. So I just wanted to ask in general, what is rheumatology and like what is it? How is it like being a rheumatologist?
So I didn't know what it was for the longest time either, so don't feel bad. But a rheumatologist is basically a physician that specializes in diagnosing and treating arthritis. So we basically deal with musculoskeletal conditions and other autoimmune diseases. So things like you may have heard of rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, osteoporosis. So we deal with all of that.
Yeah, I think Ryan mentioned like both of us. Even me personally, I didn't know what it was. I had to actually Google search it.
Yeah.
So yeah,
No,
so
I get that a lot. I got someone that said like, "Oh, do you specialize in like interior design?" And I'm like, "I don't get it." And they're like, "Oh, a rheumatologist." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, like no."
So yeah, that's really cool. So basically about the arthritis and that, I wanted with rheumatology and that, I wanted to ask like why did you choose it? Because I know there's a lot of specialties. I don't know every one of them, but like there's a lot. When I just looked up like specialties to go in medicine, there's like so many to decide. So I wanted to ask like why was it this one that you would choose to specialize in?
So I decided that I really loved it in my first year of residency, actually. So I didn't even know that I wanted to do it in med school or even going into medicine. But I wanted to find something that had a good balance of an outpatient, environment and medicine. So I fell in love with it in my first like clinical rotation in residency. And I just like the fact that I'm going to develop these relationships with these patients for like their whole life. So unfortunately, there's no cure for anything that I treat. But I loved the complexity of patient presentation. Like, so everyone's going to present different. So there's no black and white really. And then it's kind of an art because there's a lot of different ways to treat the same thing. So maybe what works for you may not work for the next person. So I found that really intriguing. And then, a lot of it is work-life balance too. Once you get that far along, you really want to idealize what kind of life you want to live. And so I really liked the structure of being in an office and having a schedule. And then, also seeing these patients who all develop relationships with for the rest of their life. So it was like a life and a science thing all at the same time.
wow, that's incredible. Like that, I could see like your passion towards your patients and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So to like arthritis, you mentioned has no cure, right?
These types of arthritis,
Mhm.
yeah. So we just try to prevent it from disabling the patient. So we try to get them to where they can live life fully functional on treatment.
Yeah. So how did you like how was your matching process and residency and fellowship? Like I know all our guests had like a different experience. So would you
Mhm.
mind sharing your experience through that process?
Yeah. So when I was in residency, as soon as I realized I wanted to do rheumatology, which I advocate for like anyone that found a field of medicine they really love, is try to spend as much time in the field. So I tried to get as many rotations in rheumatology as possible. So I understood what I was really getting into. And then also when you're applying to get to the next step, you want to show that you do have a passion for what you are, wanting to pursue. So the match process, I'll backtrack. The match process for residency was pretty just like, as far as my med school is concerned, we were delegated to go to certain hospitals, and that's where, you kind of showed face and your work ethic. And I ended up matching at a program that I spent a decent amount enough time at So they felt comfortable picking me. So I feel like for the med student, where you end up spending a lot of your times in your rotations will dictate the relationships you have at that hospital. And then once you kind of show them your work ethic and who you are and what you can bring to the table, I feel like all residency programs want to pick someone that they have had around them. So residency, program directors really love when they're like, oh, I know Rohan. He worked with me. He has great work ethic. Versus like picking someone just based off an application. So you really get to know someone's personality, which I think is so important. And then the same thing goes for fellowship. So once you find out that, you do want to pursue something to the next step, spend a lot of your time or as much as your time getting exposure to people in the field, the patients, and then extending yourself. Can I go see that consult for you, or can I tag along to this didactic session, or can I present to you? In all types of medicine, people want to know you're passionate about what you do, and if you really are, it'll just show no matter what. So get out there and just overextend yourself is what I like to say.
Yeah, like I can totally agree with what you said. And from our previous guests, also talking to doctors or any type of career, it's just a passion. If you don't
Mm-hmm.
have a passion for it, imagine going every day to work, or
Exactly.
you're not going to be happy. That's not going to be helpful. It's just going to feel longer to you. You want to feel like you go to work. Of course, there's going to be rough days, but you want to go to work feeling like it goes really shortly by in that. So I feel like that's a great point you brought up. And
Yeah.
I really going before we move on to your like passions outside of medicine and part of medicine, like I really wanted to bring up the point of like you said, passion. And for our viewers, like again, passion is really important. And I feel like that's a great that's really interesting how like they, instead of like they look at your supplemental materials like, oh, you might, I don't know if they do grades or like it's pass and fail medical school, but they look at you as a person and like how you are in the field of medicine. So I really thought that was interesting too. So before actually we're gonna move on to our next topic about your passions outside of medicine. And I really thought it was really interesting, if, especially what Rohan said in your introduction, that you're all your like
Yeah,
achievements.
it's kind of like a little bit of everything.
Yeah, and that's really interesting because when you hear about medicine, like many people are like, oh, you're gonna be stuck there for like
Mm-hmm.
24 hours a day, the whole day, and doing nothing else. And it looks like that you're able to manage all these activities without like just sticking to one activity. So I wanted to ask, how do you do this incredible time management with all these activities? Like even with me, it's hard to handle school and a couple of my other activities I do outside of school.
Yeah. So I'm still, it's everyone's different and it's a work in progress, but time management is absolutely everything and it works differently for a lot of people. But for me, I definitely didn't want to fall short of doing the things that I enjoy, because I think we get so stuck with being in a box and having to finish this and being on this schedule that we forget that we do have things and passions outside of medicine. So for me, it required maybe cutting out an hour of sleep here or there, or waking up a little bit earlier, or, studying on the weekends to get some stuff done. But like you said, if you have a passion for it, you're going to figure it out. And it was a lot of moving parts, especially being in medical school or wanting to go to medical school. It's very daunting. And it is very time consuming. So I'm definitely not discounting that. Um, but when you have like a good support system around you, friends, family, they encourage you and motivate you to kind of like, and they'll give you a helping hand. You're not in this alone. And people that really want to see you succeed will be there to support you and lend you a hand any way they can. So I know my parents really helped me throughout all this time when I was trying to juggle this and that. And then people that do respect that you are in the medical field will also work around your schedule. So I think the main thing was prioritizing, like, yeah, I do need to get through medical school and I'm not going to jeopardize that. But then also making sure that I can schedule in time, whether it's once or twice a month to do a photo shoot or to go out and do whatever, I want to do that's outside of medicine, but working with people that are understanding of that and flexible with scheduling.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like, I kind of connect with that because for me and Ryan, running this with our school is also
I
kind of
bet.
like conflicting. So both of us, like today only, we had to wake up a little early to plan our next week and next month, and just sacrifice for us, for me personally, just coming here and doing some of the extra work we do here. I like wired myself to kind of like have this as like a passion or like fun, like you said, like you mentioned earlier. So before I rant on about all that, I wanted to ask, how did your experience as Miss India Florida change your life?
So that was one of those things I did not really anticipate happening. I'm sure much like anybody else. I did it for fun. I wanted to just have a fun time with my friends, and I didn't really think beyond that moment. But when it happened, um, you know, it was definitely something that I was out of my comfort zone, to say the least. But it definitely helped boost my confidence, my self esteem. So for me as a person, it really did help me break out of my shell that maybe I was in for a little while. And the whole reason I did it was, yeah, like to have fun, but also to challenge myself and to do something that I can say, oh, you know what, you tried and it was something out of, the norm that you would have normally not done. So for me, it was like kind of two things that I was doing at once. But it opened a lot of doors for me. And that's kind of what started my modeling career. So I think a lot of times life has a funny way of working out. And, I did this for fun, but then it ended up opening the door to new passions and things that I'm still able to do now. So I'm really grateful for it all.
That's amazing. And like going back to like what you said, oh, you just did it, you didn't anticipate it. Like that goes back. I watched this YouTuber and his slogan is do what excites. So you don't know
Yeah.
what's gonna happen tomorrow. And you just do what excites. You do whatever you feel like. And that's like important in life. Like I feel like you don't want to do stuff because you're like you might be like extra, you might not be extroverted. You probably don't want to talk
Right.
to people on that. But if you push that, you push yourself to the limits that you're putting your mind is it's usually your mind. It's just
It
like your
is.
mind
It's all
telling
mind over matter. A
yeah.
100%.
So yeah, that's why I just say like if you keep your if you tell your mind that okay, I think I got this, like your mind I feel like anything is possible at the end of the day. You just tell your mind to do it, you're fine. And that's really important. Like you didn't know at the end of the day you're gonna be Miss India, and that's a very impressive achievement. And
Yeah.
like that just boosted a lot of like self a lot of like you said, a lot of stuff for you. So that's why I
Yeah.
wanted to add on.
No, 100%. I always say like we're the only people that get in our own way. Like we get in our own way more than anyone else. So I did another podcast and they're like, do you have advice for people that want to do this and this and that? And I say, do it all. Like life is short and we're really the only ones that get in our way. So to have a positive attitude and an interest in something are two really important things. And then you just make it work and somehow things will fall into place. It has a weird way of doing that. And I truly believe it.
Yeah, like exactly. I can keep on days about
Yeah.
like how basically you I might like actually this is a great follow-up of like what would you change like our next question.
Hmm.
Like there's some things we regret like
Yeah.
not doing and like I just want to ask like what was one thing going back to like doing what excites
Mhm.
you regretted doing, and if you could go to the past, take like a time machine portal, go into
Yeah.
the past, change it, what would it be?
I think I was a nerd. I'm still a nerd, but I like a lot of other people can relate. I was like very, and no one pushed me, but I was just this way. Like I was very into like getting A's and being the first and the top of the class and this and that. So sometimes I sacrificed like I really wanted to learn an instrument and I still want to and I think I will. But I really wish I learned because I started playing the piano and then I was like, oh, like I have to study for this or that or whatever. And then I would just make excuses and not go because I would let school get in the way or something else. So I wish I could go back and like, I think I'd be a really good pianist. Like I think I'd be like Mozart right now. I'm kidding. But I think I would really enjoy it. And I just wish it's something that I pursued. I started it, but I definitely fell through the cracks.
Yeah, I kind of relate that to sometimes like especially even just with our like podcasts and stuff like that. There's sometimes we feel like we didn't capitalize on an opportunity as
Mhm.
we like should have, and looking back on it, it feels like you start like kicking yourself for not doing it. Like
But
do you
there's
so
always the time to do it. I feel like there's still like life is so there's so many opportunities and so many, instances where you can make it happen again. So like I mean, I had people that went to med school after they became a midwife and they had kids. So like one of the people in my class was 40. And she was like, I really just realized I wanted to be a doctor and I should have done it, but I had kids and it was too much for me earlier. And then she came back and went to school and made it happen. So I really feel like if you want to do something, it's never too late. And so with that being said, I think I'm gonna get on doing the piano lessons.
Yeah, and I just want to say, like, I was in band. I played percussion. I had to sacrifice that due to scheduling. In high
Yeah.
school, you can't really have everything you want, but that's a regret. I'm still gonna. It's hard. You want to get to something, but it's hard to have time for that. But yeah, like it's like my parents. When you're young, my parents used to preach, "Life is short. Do whatever you want to." And
Hmm.
realizing now when you get older, like I can't believe I have 2 years left of high school, and like it was like eighth grade, middle school for me. It felt like a couple of days ago. So
Yeah.
it's kind of crazy how time flies by, and just reminds me to just enjoy life because you only have
Mhm.
one time to live.
Absolutely.
Yeah, before we go on further, it wouldn't be a ChatMed episode if we don't talk about medical school. So I have
Yeah,
a few
of
questions
course.
for you regarding the medical school journey. So we know it's right now application season, and students are hustling right now and trying to get their applications in. So right now, what would you tell a student applying how to kind of manage their college list, narrow it down, and kind of decide, I want to go here?
So we're talking about college or med school?
uh, Med school, or let's focus on med school. It's more chat med related.
Yeah, I guess. So the application process is it's a process to say the least. Just to make it very black and white. I'm trying to rack my brain because it seems like that was so long ago for me. But I applied. I guess you have to narrow. I mean, I knew people that applied to 50 different places. Like for me, I applied to like 10, I think. But I prioritized like a lot of the times you want to prioritize like, okay, where do I want to like live or what surroundings do I want to be in? And then a lot of I mean I hate to say it, but a lot of it is also like where do you think you're gonna get in, like where do you feel like your numbers are good enough, and it is a competitive field, and I think it's getting more competitive than it was like when I was applying. So obviously I think things get easier in like your towards the end of college. At least you've kind of figured out what you're going to do and you've taken all the harder classes and whatnot. But I spent like I think I dictated like an hour or 2 hours like every day just making a list, and I'll be like, okay, I'd look at like what med schools needed what, and if it was like personal statement, you can write one personal statement and be like, okay, I checked it off for 5 places. Okay, now I'm very like strategic and like do Excel spreadsheets and all that kind of stuff. But I like make a list of like what was required for each place, and then if there's something I can knock out that applies to everyone, well, then you've just knocked out like one portion of this application. Instead of going through it individually, you want to kind of spread it out so you know what you may not have to do the work 5 times. You can probably just get it done once. So I think a lot of that will help with time management. And having people like proofread your personal statements or sending it to teachers or anything else to get a second, third opinion. And then obviously the MCAT's a big part of it too. So making sure that that's squared away, and your numbers are pretty okay and competitive. So I think it's a process of just like checking off all the boxes. But once you kind of lay it out, it makes it much easier to kind of go along and figure out what needs to be done, and then it doesn't seem so overwhelming.
Yeah, and yeah, like hearing what you said about MCAT, all that, it's difficult, but like you said, strategic way, like planning Excel sheets, that's supplemental stuff that can help you out. And like I want to a little bit go backtrack to like what you said about how you had a friend that had kids, I think, and then went to medical school.
Yeah.
It's never too late. I've talked to doctors. Like we had a previous guest, their advisor told them, "You're not gonna go to med school. You're not gonna get into med school." And he took that advice and was like, "No, I'm gonna get into med school." And
Mhm.
that's like, even though there's people that are gonna haters out there, there's always gonna be haters out there. But like, there everything is possible. Like that's
Mhm.
impressive having kids and then going to med school. It's hard, especially like my mom did a lot for me, and my dad too. Like crazy how they could handle me. I cried a lot.
Yeah.
So
No, I think all of our parents did something
yeah,
at some point, like where they're like juggling us and everything else going on. But if you like truly like, I know a lot of my med school had a weed out process too. So it was like within the first 8 weeks, they put you in this like really rigorous curriculum, but that was their weeding out process. So like you knew the people that really weren't like diehard about it or passionate about it it's almost like eliminated. I hate to say that, but like they just, they didn't pass or whatever. So I always say, don't go into medicine for the glamour or the title or whatever. You have to like really want to do it, because I promise you, there'll be days where you're like, this is so much. And I say like, I can't even imagine going back and like doing what I was doing before. Like even now I'm studying for my boards and I'm like, how did I do this before? So, yeah, you really have to want to do it for the right reasons, because it will be a high learning curve, but it'll be worth it in the end. And that's true, because I kept hearing that and I was like, oh, like please stop saying that, but it's so true. So if you truly want to do it, you will be successful.
yeah, like again, like it's of course my some people like assume they want to go into medicine. And of course, there's sometimes that they find that it's not in. That's perfectly fine. That's why we said in the beginning, you brought it up, diverse yourself. Do everything you can right now to find out what you're interested in. And that's
That's
a
college. That's a college for a lot of people. You can change your major like 3, 4 times and it's okay. Like no one's holding it against you. I was going to do mass communications and then I ended up doing medicine. So,
you see, that's what I really like about you can just diverse yourself and like
and you
really
can still do both. You can like,
yeah.
here we are on a podcast and I'm a doctor and we're doing some sort of communication, so we're implementing a lot of it together. And that's really what I hope to do for, the further along in my career, to kind of blend the worlds and make it work.
Yeah, like everything. It's hard to admit I'm not a big history buff, but I don't despise it sometimes because like what you brought up, everything might come into the future. So
Mhm.
I remember in elementary school, when are we gonna use this in the future? When are we gonna use Python?
Yeah, right. You're like, who cares?
But it does help a lot, like learning some stuff and oh, there's a lot of chemistry involved and all this stuff in medicine and that it's like shocking and like of course knowing now that medicine is like a multidisciplinary study with all these other subjects coming in, it's like important that we learn all these subjects.
Mm-hmm. And you can tailor it to like exactly, again, what type of medicine you want to do, what you enjoy. I think that's the beauty about medicine is that if you're if you're not, you're okay with blood and organs and all the other things that you have to be okay with being a doctor, you really can find like a niche that you enjoy, because there's just so many different branches in medicine. And it's evolving. So I think that if it really is, you'll find what you're passionate about within medicine.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and one thing I want to add as well was not even just studies wise. I feel like medicine itself is now going like merging with like different industries as well. Like if you see like technologies coming into medicine like so
Mhm.
rapidly, so like you don't really need to be like a biology like diehard biology fan.
Yeah.
You could just implement anything and you'll find a place to like shine.
Yeah, 100%. And that's why I say, like, always, do the minors you want or do the other extra classes that have nothing to do with getting into medical school, but like do the classes because like you want to do them.
Yeah, and actually, I wanted to go back to the major stuff. You said I forgot what the major is called. Communications.
Oh, mass communications.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask, like, how did you choose your majors, and how did you switch from them, and like, how do you like take that? Because I know there's pre-med requirements, like some
Yeah.
classes. How did you manage all that and like decide what to do?
So I went in and um you actually I don't know if the rules have changed, but like I don't think you have to decide on a major for like your first year or something like that. I don't remember.
I think
Don't
that's
call,
true.
don't quote me on that.
Yeah, I
But I
think
think that
so.
so like if there's certain classes that are prerequisites for everything, you could definitely do those. I finished a year of college in high school, so then I just started off like I skipped a lot of the other classes you would initially maybe do. But I loved communications, meaning like I loved journalism. So I was doing a lot of that, like kind of what you guys are doing, but this wasn't a thing back in my day, podcast. But I would be like doing like the school news, and like I was really into English. I'd be doing a lot of like articles for the paper. So I did that all throughout middle school, high school, and I did it in college as well. So I thought that I was going to take that road, and then I went on a mission trip, and I realized like, wow, I actually like, my dad's a physician, but he never forced it upon me. But I always like heard the chatter at the dinner table and whatnot. And I'm like, okay, cool, whatever. But then I went on a mission trip with him, and I just like loved the impact that was made and how grateful the people were to be helped, and just that, you kind of are the boss. Like, you have to have that mentality. So I kept on, but then I added biomedical sciences as a major, which was a major at my school. And then that were all the prerequisites for getting into med school in that. And then I still got a minor in like public health and other things. So it's just more classes, I guess, but I guess it's a benefit of, doing summer classes. You can get some stuff out of the way and whatnot. But I just picked the major I didn't like chemistry, and I didn't like biology, like isolated. So then I found biomedical sciences, which was like a little mix of both, which was everything I needed to get into med school. So I think it's pretty easy to switch, or once you switch, you just figure out what additional things need to be done. You just go to like a guidance counselor, and they'll tell you like, oh, okay, you need to take these classes before you graduate or whatever.
I heard, actually, I think you can be undecided till your sophomore year, I heard.
Okay, I it was like something like that.
Yeah. So
Yeah, I think it would be a bit like unreasonable to ask them to disguise like the moment you come in.
Yeah, and some people, and there are some people that know right off the bat, and that's good for them, but that's not everyone. And that's, I think, the beauty of college, and something I really loved about it was that people change their minds, and it's okay because we're human. And maybe you got more exposure, and you're like, this isn't for me. So it happens.
Yeah, I know Ryan like loves talking about how like every single human on this earth is like individualistic, and he has some like quote in one of our previous episodes about like a 7 billion thing, right, Ryan?
What is it?
No, it's not cool. I like to say everyone is unique and have their own like personal, like for me, people have photographic memory, and for me, I have to like really like look at books to understand stuff, and just unique because like sometimes you have benefits and sometimes you don't. But actually sometimes that thing that doesn't benefit you actually helps you at the end. So like how I love how everyone is unique at the end of the day. So
It is. It's and that's a beauty of like what I do in rheumatology too, is like everyone's unique. Everyone presents differently, and what works for Ryan may not work for the next person. And so it really, you tailor it to the person. And that's life, and that's college, and everyone's experience is different, but it's tailored to what you want it to be.
So obviously you must have done a lot of work studying as well, obviously, because medical school. Exactly. So what are your thoughts on networking? Do you think it's beneficial? Like for Ryan and us, for us, we think that networking is almost essential, especially like when we're trying to grow like podcasts or some of our ventures. Having a strong network was crucial for us. So did you find like a similarity in that as well?
Yeah. And sometimes it's not about what you know, but who you know. And I say that with a grain of salt, but there are a lot of cool opportunities, or I guess opportunities. There's a lot of good opportunities that you wouldn't normally be aware of if you didn't meet that one person, or they didn't think about you, and they'll be like, oh, that actually would fit well with what they're trying to do. So I think networking, especially in this day and age. So again, I feel like I am old sometimes, because I'm like, back in my day, we didn't have podcasts, and like social media was not like, it was like MySpace and like maybe Facebook like was just new. But like social media has taken off so much for your guys' generation, and even for us in the field now. Like that's the way to promote practice and promote education, and bring awareness to certain things. So it really is. And I think that social media world, if it's used for the good, can really connect you to the right people, and open up opportunities. So 100%, I would say reach out to it's like knocking on doors, like knock on everyone's door. So you're going to get a lot of no's, but someone's going to say yes.
I agree. Like my mom is a real estate agent, and I always ask. She used to knock. She like knocked on every door, like, "Oh, do you need that?" And like you said, networking is really important because like some businesses are even like outside of medicine, like having a huge network is important. Like our previous episode, Dr. Linden, he was in the biotech field, and he said he wouldn't be where he is without his network. So like
Mm-hmm.
especially like a lot of people rely on a network, like even friends, family. Like I feel like that's
Yeah.
very important. And
Absolutely. I still like do, sometimes I'll depend on my brother for something because he knows someone. And I think that that's so important and to keep those relationships and to make something out of it. But I think that that's the beauty about social media these days is like you normally would never be able to connect to certain people or talk to certain people. And now it's almost just like a click away.
Mhm. Yeah, and all talking about social media and like TV, my mom would be mad if I didn't mention you and Family Karma because she saw you in an episode and what's it called? My mom is a huge I go down middle of the like 10 p.m. and she's like, "Oh, I'm watching Family Karma."
So
I
funny.
was like, yeah, we're interviewing Dr. Shah and like asking her stuff for a podcast. Like, what, Dr. Shah? And she was like, she was on Family Karma that. So I wanted to ask, like, you were on Family Karma, right?
Hmm.
So I wanted to ask, like, how was your experience? Because Bravo is a big TV network, and I heard Family Karma is a huge show. So I want to ask, how was
Yeah.
the experience going into that? Was it like nerve wracking in that?
It actually wasn't because, like I said, I was doing a lot of stuff like communications wise, news, whatever before, so I wasn't really intimidated or weirded out by the scenario or situation. But I thought it was a really great experience, and I made some really good relationships, and that are still very important to me, and lifelong friends and memories. And I think most importantly is that it gave me the opportunity to connect with, like you guys said, networking connections, connect with a lot of people, and bring awareness about like what I do and what rheumatologists do and what we can, what we treat and how our everyday is. So I think from again, I feel like that connection's finally happening for me where I really wanted both worlds to mix. And I think that this has happened and I'm really, really excited to see where it goes and to make something out of it.
Yeah, definitely. Sometimes, like I think we mentioned before, that we're not able to foreshadow or kind of predict what something in the moment would turn out to in the future. Like
Correct.
for me and Ryan personally, 12 months ago, we started the parent company, Let's Go Learning, and we would have never thought that we would be having guests from TV shows, doctors from all across the world,
Yeah.
and stuff like that on our podcast. It's crazy because we used to be friends in school at lunch table. That one connection came to a nice like long-term relationship in this. So I really like that and relate to that a lot. So I think Ryan has one more thing before we end off.
Yeah, seeing that it's like what we said, passion going by fast has already been like I don't know 40 minutes plus, and I think you covered a lot in general about your whole career, and I just want to say that's very impressive. I just want to just say thank you again for coming on, taking some time, for like talking to our viewers and talking to us. It was just amazing time and amazing episode. So I just want to say thank you. And before we end off, I just want to ask. It's kind of hard to give one piece of advice, but like what is you can say multiple pieces of advice, but like what is like one thing or like some piece of advice you would like to give our viewers to pursue in any journey or any endeavor they would like to do?
I've answered this question before, and I think it's like a few parts, but my first, like, I guess, very short, abbreviated uh, piece of advice is do it. Um, no pun on Nike, but like
Yeah.
literally just do it because if you're passionate about it and it's something that you even want a little part or a little taste of, make it happen and do it to say you did it. And the other part of that is to have a good support system when you're on this path of doing all the things you're passionate about. I would not be where I am today without, a good family and friends support system. There's gonna be a lot of times you fail, but you have like they're going to be there to pick you up when you don't feel like picking yourself up, and they're going to motivate you to keep going. And we're human and we need support. So ask for help and have a good support system. But I always just say do it all. Life is short. You've said it multiple times. And then I think in a COVID world, I think we've come to that realization, unfortunately, in a daunting way. But go after all of your dreams and passions, and whether it's now or a few years from now, but make time for it. Don't forget about it. And just make sure you have a good support system around you.
Yeah, I think that's incredible advice that almost everybody could apply. And I'm
Mhm.
sure everybody will go to great places like that, like you have as well. So, once again, I want to say thank you on behalf of Let's Go Learning and our viewers at home for coming on our show, taking time out of your day and sharing your experiences to all of our viewers. So, I thank you so much for that. And we hope to have you again on this show
Yeah,
sometime in the
I would
future.
love to be back. Thank you guys for having me. And honestly, like I have to say this time and time again because I've met a lot of young, a lot of young people that are out there doing podcasts and really expanding their interests and finding ways to mix it all together. But like kudos to you guys for doing this. I think this is fantastic. And I'm really, really thrilled and honored that you had me on here. I think you guys are fantastic. And I wish you like literally nothing but the best of luck. You guys are on a great path and you're already achieving a lot. So good job.
Thank you so much again, and thank you again for your time and like that compliment too. And we wish the best for you too. I heard your boards are coming up, so good luck on
Yes,
that.
send good vibes. Thanks. But I'd love to come back anytime. So thank you guys again.
So thank you, chat matters, for listening to episode 9 with Dr. Shah. And I hope you really liked this episode. I hope you took a lot of notes because a lot of good information was in this
Yeah,
episode.
reach out on social media if anyone has any
Yeah.
questions. I'd love to continue to chat with you and have conversation and impart any advice that I can and help in any way I can.
Yeah, I'll pop the Instas on the
Awesome.
description if you want to reach her out and ask questions.
Yes,
So thank you
please.
again,
I love that.
thank you again, Dr. Shah, and I
Thanks,
hope wish the
guys.
best for our chat matter viewers and that. So everyone, I hope you keep on working hard for your endeavors and have a great day.